Alrighty, we have ourselves a problem. We have condensation inside of our headlight. This headlight over here is fine. This one over here has condensation inside of it. A lot of times when this happens, it goes away on its own, but this has been in here for a week now and it's not going to go away on its own, so we need to do something about it. Usually when this happens, there's a clogged vent that's keeping the moisture from escaping and evaporating. One thing you will hear from a lot of people that don't understand the problem is they say, oh, you must have a little hairline crack somewhere. Actually, that's not the problem, because these headlights are designed to be vented, so a crack shouldn't cause this. If you have a broken one, then water might get in there by the bucket load, but a little crack shouldn't cause this. What happens is when you're in some warm, humid air, it gets heated up, and then when you quickly change to cold air, it condenses and you get moisture, and it should be able to evaporate. But if you've got a clogged vent or something that's keeping it from evaporating, it just stays in there. It could stay in there forever, especially if you have a clogged vent. So let's take a look on the inside and see what we can do about it. Now, this is our old beater van, so I don't mind experimenting a little bit on this, but this should be a safe process for any vehicle that has this problem. Basically, you want to look behind your headlight and find the most convenient bulb. I've got some fancy LED bulbs in there. Find the one that's easiest to access and remove it, and that'll give you a nice hole back there through which you can insert some tubing to suck air out or to push air in, whatever is the easiest solution for you. So I'm going to remove that LED bulb and then insert some tubing in there. And I'll show you the next step in a moment. But basically this happened in the first place because took our vehicle into Walmart against my better judgment and purchased their $25 headlight restoration service that gets rid of the fogginess and the oxidation. And they did end up more clear, but what happened when they did that is that heats up the plastic in their nice warm shop where there's a lot of moisture, a lot of dudes walking around in there breathing heavy compared to the outside air. So there's warm, moist air, and then the plastic gets warm from the buffing process. And then as soon as they drove it back out of the shop to its parking spot where it was about 30 degrees, the condensation happened, which normally would be fine. It would go away eventually, but like I said, there must be a clogged vent back there. So let me get rid of that LED bulb and insert some tubing, and we'll proceed with the next step. Okay, I inserted a tube. If you look back behind the headlight, you can see I temporarily removed that bulb, and I ran some tubing in there. And I got this tubing, a lot of times this tubing is used for like running from a dehumidifier to a drain or something. It's just standard clear plastic tubing you can get at any hardware store. They sell it by the foot. And it's really cheap. And where is it going? You can see inside the headlight. It's sticking out there. Here, I'll move it a little bit. See that? It's inside the headlight, the one end. And then where does the other end go? It connects to a vacuum cleaner. I just took that hose and ran it into the crevice tool, and then I wrapped some duct tape around it to keep it in place and to kind of seal it off. And so now what I'm doing basically is sucking air out of that headlight. And you might be thinking, well, that's not going to help. I want to blow some air in there. Well, by sucking air out of the front of the light, that air has to be replaced, and so that draws air in from the back of the light, and so it causes a sort of circulation, and eventually when I run this vacuum, that's going to, all that circulation is going to help to clear out that condensation. Okay, well, without any further ado, let's fire up the vacuum and get started. I mean, I don't know if this is going to take 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or an hour, but I'm just going to let it run. So let's fire up the vac. And you're not going to see anything right away, but let's let it run. Let's let it run, and then I'll check back in with you after it's ran for a while. All right, let's have a look. Look at that. Crystal clear, no water condensation. Took about exactly 15 minutes, just like I predicted. Of course, I cheated a little bit. I added this hair dryer pointing at the vent in the back. So that's supplying fresh, hot air. And then the other end of the tubing that's inside is on the other side, on the far end of the headlight, and that's sucking in the old air. And that creates some circulation with fresh, warm air that picks up that moisture and routes it out the vacuum. Bada boom, bada bing. Done and done. Now, you might be wondering, where's that vent I'm talking about? Let's look right where this hair dryer is pointing. You can see on this vehicle, it's right here. There's a little hole. And it's got this shroud around it, this plastic shroud. It's a little hole, and the purpose of that hole is to provide ventilation. So if anybody tells you that this condensation is caused by a crack, and you need to get new headlight units, they're blowing hot air up your bung. Sorry for the pun. How do you find these vents? How do you know what they look like? They'll always be covered with like a little rubber boot like this. So I'm going to put mine back on. And the purpose of this rubber boot is so that no moisture can get sprayed directly into the vent, but air can get around it. So I'm going to push that back on there. And now air can still get underneath there slowly, just enough to vent it out. But water can't get sprayed in there. Like if you were, I don't know why you'd hose off an engine. I think that's a bad idea. But so that's what a vent looks like. Sometimes there's more than one. But in this case, that's all I needed. And I was able to blow some warm air in there that provided a supply of fresh, warm air to pick up that moisture. And then the hose sucked out the old air. So the vent is on the left side, right around here back there. And the end of the hose is on the right side, right there inside. You can see it still. That created some circulation of warm air to pick up that moisture and route it out. And yeah, good as new. So this shouldn't happen again. Now, it might happen again if I find myself in a situation with warm, humid air and then quickly moving to an environment with cold air. Then the condensation might happen again, and I might have to do this again. This is the first time I've ever had to do this with this vehicle. I checked the vent. The vent wasn't clogged, so I'm not sure why the vehicle is having such a hard time letting that evaporate, but this did the trick. So yeah, basically a free solution, took 15 minutes. Okay, I removed the vacuum and the hose. I removed the hair dryer. Only thing left to do is to plug my LED light back in, which I love. they're pretty easy on this vehicle. They just kind of turn them, push them in, and then rotate them back clockwise. And it kind of screws in there, just like about not even a quarter turn. And that was the easiest one to remove. I've actually got 2 of these LED bulbs on each side. The one is way back there, really hard to get at. You got to have some long fingers. When I was putting these in, there's a lot of swearing and some crying. There was some crying. Sometimes I cry when I'm doing stuff, and it's really difficult. But yeah, that's all there is to it. I zip tied my little transformer here, or whatever that is. I think it's a transformer. Changes the electricity, the electrical supply to the bulb. The LED must use something a little different than the standard bulbs. And yeah, she's ready to go. Love these bulbs. I'll put a link in the comments below. I got these on Amazon for about 30 bucks a pair, and they are 3 times brighter than the brightest halogen lights for this vehicle. And we will lock her down, and I'll show you just how nice they are. So let's close the hood. Kind of hard to appreciate in the daylight, but those are some bright lights. So do yourself a favor and pick up a couple pairs of those. Like I said, I needed 2 pair for this vehicle because each side takes one for the high beam and one for the running lights or the low beam or whatever. So yep, she's good to go. There's some reflections in there, some like little pits that make it look like there's still moisture in there, but it's all gone. Here, let me turn the lights off. Yep, she's pretty much perfect. Looky. That worked pretty slick. That's just good old science, folks. I wasn't happy with the solutions I found online, so I just kind of used the kind of just thought about it and thought, well, this should work, and it did. So hope it works for you. And if you don't mind, please like and subscribe.